Hey, welcome back to Code with Beto. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how you can use Whisper locally in your React Native application. For those who don't know, Whisper is an automatic speech recognition system open sourced by OpenAI in September 2022. Whisper enables transcription in multiple languages in real time on device. This is huge for many use cases like taking notes. The user can just start speaking and you can recognize and translate the speech to text locally, so it won't cost you anything and it's not that heavy. And we also have more options that we're going to cover in this video as well. We're going to be downloading these models from Hugging Face. Hugging Face, in case you don't know, it's a platform where everyone that open source an LLM will upload it so that everyone can download it from there. So we're going to be downloading these models directly from Hugging Face to the user's device and then use them locally. And this is going to work on Android and iOS. Let me show you a quick demo so that you get a taste of what's possible with these models. Okay, so here we have it. This is the example application that I made, and I actually made a tweet yesterday explaining that I was playing around with this and everyone was interested, so that's why I'm making this video. We're not going to be building this exactly as it is in here because this is just an example app. We're going to be just focusing on how to do everything like installing Expo file system, how to save the models, how to download them from Hugging Face when the user selects a different model. So you can see here, for example, I can download Tiny. Well, it is right there already. Let's try to download small. Yeah, so the progress is not showing at the moment, but it's actually downloading it. And the small model, it's 500 megabytes, I think. So it's going to take a while, and there it is. Now it's active. This is my Android device, by the way. You can see it here. And in case you're wondering how the heck I'm showing the device on screen, I'm using Android Studio. You can use Android Studio to connect your phone and then see it. And actually, you can even control it on your computer, which is really cool. Anyways, once you download the model, it's going to select it by default, and I can then switch between the models that I already have downloaded. So let's use the small one. And then I can just start a live session. So right now, this is a live session. And by the way, I would recommend that you test this on a real device, especially if you are doing the live translation, because I was testing on an emulator and it didn't really work very well for me. So make sure to, use a real device, at least for Android. iOS worked great on the simulator. And I can show you right now, by the way. So let me start a live session as well. On the iOS device, we're using the base model, and we should be able to get some text here. It is a bit slow right now, and I'm guessing it's my computer at the end of the day because I'm recording the screen. I also have Android Studio, emulator, everything going on, and it might feel a bit slower, but still you can see that it's pretty doable, right? And let's see, let's stop the live session on both. Okay, and this is going to just show me a transcript. Here, let me clear the live transcript, and this is like the final result. So if you take a look at the result, it's pretty accurate. You can see, so right now, this is a live session. And by the way, I will recommend that you test this on a real device, especially if you are doing live translation, because it's very accurate. Now this unlocks many possibilities, like you can, allow the user to take notes using their voice, then get the transcript, save the transcript, or give it to AI, start a workflow that is going to summarize the ideas, and then provide some bullet points. I don't know, you can do many things. So we're going to be downloading these models from Hugging Face, like I said before. Then we're going to store them locally using Expo file system. From here, the user can remove them. So for example, let's say that I don't want to use the small model because it's half gigabyte, so I can delete it, right? And by the way, the tiny model, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's only 74 megabytes. Let's test it out, by the way. Let me select Tiny here. Let's start a live session. Tiny, by the way, it's going to be faster, reliable, is not that heavy. Many users would be able to install it. And let's stop the session. Yeah, so a couple of mistakes. Maybe it's my speaking, I don't know. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's the most most, cost effective. And by the way, you can also pass, apart from doing a live session, you can also pass an audio file. So for example, I have here a button that says transcribe sample. This is processing a file, and then it's going to give me the transcript. So you can, I don't know, download, for example, an audio file from a YouTube video and then pass it to the local model, and it's going to translate the audio. This works as well on iOS. Let's transcribe this one. You get the results fairly quickly. It depends as well on the audio, of course. Keep in mind that this is running locally. You don't want to pass a 2-hour long audio. That would be, I don't know, maybe, haven't tried it. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe it will work depending on the device. So this is basically the demo, guys. There is a lot of great opportunities and many use cases that I want to expose to you. Maybe you are doing something similar, you want to integrate this. This is going to be cost effective. By the way, this works also offline, meaning that if I turn off the Wi-Fi, this is still going to work because the models are running locally on device. So based on my testing, the results are pretty reliable as well. So that's something that is really cool as well. So this is the demo, guys. If you find this interesting, stick till the end. You're gonna learn a lot. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe, and let's dive in. As always, guys, if you want to level up your skills in mobile development with React Native and React, check out codewithbeto.dev. I have many courses that you can check it out here. I have a React Native course that covers basically everything that you're gonna need in your journey as a React Native developer. So if you want to level up like from zero all the way to publishing, testing, end-to-end, push notifications, backend integrations, using Expo application services to scale and speed up your development, everything is available in this course. And on top of that, we have some premium resources and templates, examples. In case you already know the basics, you just need the code as example, or you just wondering how to implement one or two things, you can check out our premium resources. We have pretty cool projects using AI, using authentication, and some of these projects are personal projects that I'm actually building with my team, and we're going to be shipping some of these projects. So I'm super excited because these are real production projects that you can use as example, or take some features and integrate them in your projects. In case you decide to become a member at Code with Beto, I'm going to leave a promo code for you down here that you can use for a discount. All right, now that said, let's start by really understanding what is Whisper. OpenAI, like I said, introduced this in 2022, September. So it's been almost 3 years. It's a while. And it's actually crazy to think that it's been possible to use this with React Native from a long time, I think, because we're going to be using Whisper.rn. And this project was created 2 years ago, which is absolutely crazy. But anyways, Whisper is an automatic speech recognition system. It's not like an LLM because, an LLM, you can ask it questions and it's going to give you tokens, answers. But this model, it's a bit different because it only does one thing. It recognizes speech and generates the transcript. You can also pass on audio, and it's, by the way, multilingual, which is really cool. So for example, let's try to test this using a different language, right? So thankfully I speak Spanish. I'm from Mexico. So I'm going to start a live session and I'm going to start speaking Spanish, and let's see what happens. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Bienvenidos a mi canal. En este video vamos a aprender cómo utilizar Whisper. All right, let's stop that. So I said, welcome to the channel. In this video, we'll learn how to use Whisper. Funny thing is that it translates what I'm saying in Spanish to English. This might be useful for you as well. Cool thing is that when you set it to English, it's going to detect any language and transcript to English, which is good because some models actually only understand English at the moment. For example, I've been working on an AI tattoo application that I can quickly show you here. this app that I'm working on, and it's actually a premium resource at Code with Beto. You can check it out, and the source is available for members if you are interested. But anyways, I'm working on this app and I'm using Nano Banana to generate tattoos that you can try on. And this is how it looks, right? So once you try a tattoo, it's going to put it on your skin, on your photo. But a funny thing that I realized is that if you write the prompt in a different language, it's not going to work. So maybe you want to keep the English version of the transcript. But anyways, this is just my use case. Now that we know that this works and how it works, what you can do, let's actually start implementing it from zero. All right, so let's get started. Let's start by creating an application. By the way, I'm using Warp. They actually are not sponsoring this video, but they have supported the channel in some previous videos. And I like to use Warp, so if you want to try it out yourself, I'm gonna leave a link in the description in case you want to try their pro plan. I actually have a referral link that you can use down here. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I actually use it all the time, and you can do things like, for example, you can use natural language, like say, navigate to my apps folder in the desktop, in my desktop. Some pretty cool things that I like about Warp is that you can use Beam. So I actually can select all these, use Beam. I like to use Beam, so it's something that I really enjoy when using Warp. You can use natural language. I always use this to stop my 8081 server when it's running. And I don't want to, I can find it. I'll just ask Warp, please kill process 8081, and it's going to do it. But yeah. Right now, as you can see, now we are in the apps folder, and here's where I'm going to be creating my project. Another cool thing is that you get suggestions. So if I say BonX, it's going to suggest the name. In this case, it's going to be Whisper Video. This is going to be the name of my app. So let's hit enter. And then let's cd. Right there, it's suggesting cd into the project. And then you can index this in Warp and do more advanced stuff. By the way, if you want to learn more about it, I made other videos in this channel, but I'm going to continue this using VS Code. So let's say code dot. And the first thing that we need to do is just install Whisper.rn. Here we have some extra instructions, but in their examples, they are not actually using expo modules for the file system and permissions of the audio, which I think it's it's not very easy to integrate, especially if you're using those community packages. So in my implementation, I'm using expo modules for permissions and the file system. So the only thing that we need from here is the Whisper.rn. So let's go back to our project. Let's just make sure that this is working. I'm going to start the server, npx expo start, and let's run it on the simulator, just to make sure that everything is going to work. Right now I'm using expo, but it's actually not going to be compatible once we install this library. But I just wanted to show you that this looks good, right? Cool. So now let's clear the terminal, and I'm gonna say npx, well, since this is not an expo module, I can just say bun install whisper.rn. And if we take a look at the package JSON, now we have Whisper here. I'm using 5.1, which is the latest version. Okay, so now after this, we are going to need permissions to use the microphone. This is very important. And we're going to need file system access to save and download the models from Hugging Face. So let's install npx expo install expo file system and expo audio for permissions. Hit enter. That's done. You can double check that in here. Expo audio and expo file system. Cool. So let's do a quick configuration in the app.json. We need to go to the plugins. Now expo audio is here, but we need to add permissions. So let me select this. I'm going to wrap this with brackets, and then let's define some permissions. The only thing I care about is the microphone permissions. So I'm going to copy this message here and hit save. Basically, microphone permissions, it's going to show this allow product name to access the microphone for transcriptions. Okay, that's all we need. Now we can close this. Now, since we install Whisper.rn, that means that we can no longer use Expo since Expo does not come with Whisper.rn. So let's create a development build by running npx expo pre-build platform iOS. You can do this as well for Android. Just to keep things simple, I'm gonna do this for iOS only. Now this video, I think it's going to be fairly long because we're going to cover many ground, so make sure to grab your coffee. Okay. After that, let's run the project. I'm gonna say npx expo run iOS and hit enter. This is going to run it on my simulator. Okay, so let's go to the index screen and let me start by just simplifying this screen. I'm going to just have one simple view. So let's just say view from React Native. And then we can have a text if you want. Maybe we can use the theme text. Hello, and if you want, we can use the theme view that comes with the template as well. Hit save. Okay, now it works. Let me just put everything inside a scroll view so that we're actually able to see what's inside this by providing the content insets automatic behavior equal to automatic. It's safe. So this is going to just place the content within the safe area. Okay, so if I say flex of 1 here, this is going to take the entire available space. Yeah, so maybe I'm just going to delete the theme view. So the first thing that I want to do is initialize the model as soon as the application starts. This is totally optional. You can call this function anytime that you want. But yeah, first things that I want to do here is just make sure that we can initialize the model so that we can use it. And if we don't have it, we are going to download it from Hugging Face using Expo file system. Let's create a function initialize model. This is going to be an async arrow function that looks like this. Now, when we're initializing a model, we need to ask which model we want to use. And this is going to be of type string. And by default, this is going to be the base model. Or we can default it to tiny. It depends on your preference. In this case, I'm going to use the base model. And the base model, let's see. Base model is 74 megabytes, which is, totally okay, I think, at this point, right? In 2025, users should be able to download 20 megabytes. Yeah, so that's my default. In here, what I'm going to do is just have a try catch in case we have an error initializing the model, like maybe we couldn't download it, maybe we got an error on the client side. We are just, in this case, just putting the console, but it might be a good idea to show an alert for the user. Now, in here, I'm going to call a function, and this is actually something that we need to create at the moment. In its Whisper model here, passing the model ID, right? Now, we could create this logic here, but I would recommend that you abstract this into a hook. So on the left, we already have a hooks folder, and I'm going to create a new file. Let's call this use Whisper models.ts. Now let me paste a little bit of code here, just a couple imports and some links for the Hugging Face models. And let me show you what we have in here. Basically, we need to download the models from this website, Whisper.c++. So it's not possible to download directly the Whisper Tiny from OpenAI. We need the C++ version. And thankfully, the same company that created the package for React Native created Whisper.c++, which is the same thing converted to GGML format for use with Whisper C++. So this is a special format specifically for the C++ implementation. So in here, you'll find the models that you can use, including the size. You can use any model that you want in here, but again, I would recommend that you stick with these small ones. You know, it depends on what you're building, but I was trying yesterday the large B3, large turbo, this one. It's 1.5 gigabytes. I thought it was gonna be great. The quality is almost the same. It's maybe a bit better, but the phone is very slow. Using my iPhone 17 Pro, which is the latest and greatest, and it was a bit slow. It's not like I couldn't use the app, but it was slow, definitely very slow. So I wouldn't recommend it. So that's why here, I'm gonna leave the link here in the source code below so that you can check it out. But yeah, we're going to come back to these imports in a moment. In here after that, I'm defining a Whisper model. This is just so that we know what type of information we have for each model. We're going to have an ID, label, the URL to download it, file name, and some capabilities, because some of them have multilingual support, and then they also have this quantizable thing, Boolean, and you know, all other things that we're actually not going to be using here. So this is just a type. And then I'm just defining an array of models that we are offering for this app. And as you can see here, I have here the large V3 Turbo that I was telling you, but I'm just going to delete it. And this is the cool thing of abstracting the logic, is that you can just come here and add a new model or delete the model. And yeah, let's just leave tiny, base, small, and small. Oh yeah, I'm actually going to delete this one as well. Just 3 for now. You can just skip 2 or just default to tiny if you want. But yeah, the URL, it's coming from the link. You can copy it here. If you click on the available models, you're going to find this download button. So what you need to do is just right click and copy link address. Yeah, tiny bin, this is the one you want. So right click on the download button, copy link address, go back and paste it in here. This is basically the same link, but just remove the query parameters download equal to true. Okay, so I actually have here the English version, and this might be actually why it wasn't working in my test when I was speaking Spanish. It could understand, but yeah, let's actually use this one. So let's copy the link again and let's replace this. Paste it. Cool. There we go. You can do the same for all the ones that you want to include in your application. Then just provide a file name. This is going to be ggml tiny.bin, and I'm just grabbing this from here. You can copy this and paste it in here to make sure that you don't have any mistakes. And some of the capabilities, multilingual, this actually should be true, right? I think this is multilingual, so I'm going to set this to true. All right, and that's it. Hit save. So these are the models that we're going to use. This is just a list of models. Now we can actually start creating the hook down here. I'm going to create another interface here. Just for the model file info, we're going to need a path and a size. So let's just create this interface for that. Now let's export our hook. Export function use Whisper models. So this is where we're going to implement the init function. This is going to be an async function. Initialize Whisper model. If you remember, we're going to pass the model, which is a string. So let's say model of type string. Let me actually rename this to a model ID. And the model ID is going to be this thing, right? So this string could be base by default. So once we pass that in here, we need to find the model. So let's say model is going to be equal to, let's use this array. and I'm going to say find. Okay, so for each model, we want to return the model that the ID is equal to the model ID that we are getting as parameter. Okay, so once we have the model, we can start initializing it, but it's a good idea to have a fallback here. So in case we don't have a model, we can show an alert saying that we couldn't find the model name or model ID and return. So initializing the model can take a while. I'm going to create a state variable using useState, and let's call it is initializing model, set is initializing model. So the first thing that I want to do here is create a try catch again. If we have an error, let's put in the console, and then inside this try, I'm going to say set is initializing model equal to true. And yeah, this is yelling at me because this should be false by default. Now it's going to know that this is a Boolean. So this is going to be true. And then finally, we can do it right away. Set is initializing equal to false. This means that we finish initializing. It succeeded, it failed, whatever, we still want to set this variable to false. Now, the next thing is going to be download the model if we don't have it already. If we don't have it already. Next, after that, we need to initialize. Initialize Whisper context once we have the model. And then return the context so that we can use it in the component. So download the model if we don't have it already. This is going to be the case the first time that we open the application. So let's create a function here, async function download model. This is going to take a model which is of type Whisper model. And this is actually a type that we define here. Okay, so from here we can get some information of the model. So this is where we start interacting with the file system. We need to get the directory of this file. So let's say directory equal to await get model directory. So this is a function that we actually need to create. Let's create it up here. Async function, this is the name. And this function is going to return the model directory using Expo file system. So I'm going to say const. So let's say document directory. This is a let variable of type directory. And this directory is coming from Expo file system. And we want to set the document directory to be saved in the documents of the device. So I'm going to have a try catch here that is assigning this variable to the paths.document. And paths is actually coming from Expo file system and it returns the path to the documents, that's all. But in case we can't find it, we're just going to throw an error saying that, document directory is not available. But it's going to be available most of the time. I would be surprised if you hit this error, but well, you would know where this is coming from. Once we have the documents path, we can create a directory. So I'm going to say new directory from Expo file system, and let's pass the path to the documents in the file and the name of the folder that we want to create to save this file. Whisper models. That's the name of my folder. Okay, so once we have that, we can say directory.create, and then we can pass some options. I'm gonna say idempotent true intermediates true. This means that this function is safe to call multiple times without errors. And this means whether to create immediate directories if they do not exist. So we actually want to do that. That's why we're setting true here. And finally, we can return the directory. I'm going to put this error here so that we don't get that warning. Cool. So now we have the get module directory function here. We can minimize this. So once we have the directory, we can get the instance of the file. So let's say const file equal to new file from expo file system. We pass the directory and the file name, which is the model.file name. We're getting this model in the parameters. So what we're doing here is just pointing to this file, but we're actually not sure if the file exists. So after that, I'm going to check if the file actually exists. So I'm going to say existing file equal to file.info. If we cannot get the info of the file, we are going to just show a warning and then set existing info equal to exist equal to false. But if we do have the info, or if the file already exists, what we want to do here is console log that the model already exists, and then we can console log the file URL and then update the model info. This is a helper function that I'm going to create here. And this function is just going to set the information about the model that already exists in some state variables. So we're going to grab the info like the path and size, right? So let's create this set model files variable here. This is going to use useState. It's just a record of a string and the model info, which is the size and path of the model. So this function is just updating the state variables with the information of the file if it already exists so that we can show it on screen. And then it returns the file URL. Now, this is in the case that the file already exists. But if the file does not exist, we're going to actually pass this if statement, and this is where we want to download the model if it doesn't exist locally. So let's come to the top and let's create a new variable. Is downloading and set is downloading, because at this point I want to say set is downloading equal to true so that we know that it's downloading the file. So I'm going to paste a little bit of code here and let's walk through it together. So we are saying that we are starting the download. We're putting this in the console so that we know that we're starting the download. And then we have this create download resumable function. This is coming from expo file system legacy. And we're using this one because it allows you to create a resumable download, and we can start and pause and resume the download contents from the remote URL file in the app file system. Okay, so this is going to take the model URL that we are going to download from, and then it's going to take the file URL where we want to save these, right? So we can pass the file URL like this. Then we pass undefined because we are not setting any options. And then after that, we have some callbacks. The callbacks helps us track the progress of the download. So we get the progress data and we can set the download progress based on this data. So let's create this set download progress variable. I'm going to create it here using useState, just a record of string and numbers. We can get the total bytes written and total bytes expected to write, which is the total size of the model, from this parameter in the callback. And we can just calculate the fraction, dividing the total bytes between the total bytes expected to write. Then we save the download progress, in the variable. Okay, and then we put each time that we download a chunk, we put that in the console with the current model ID and the fraction. Cool. So after that, we get the download result. This means that at this point we have the file and we can call await download resumable dot download async. And we pass the file as file system download result. This is all coming from Expo file system legacy, I think. Yeah. And if download result, if we have a result, if the result status is 0 and the status is greater than 200, that means that everything went well and the download was successful. We're just putting this in the console so that we know that we could download the model. And then we update the model file info again to, so that we are able to display that on screen. And then set download progress. Again, we pass, to update the download progress. And finally, return the file URL. At this point, it means that it exists. Otherwise, we're just going to throw an error, catch. If we have an error, put in the console, nothing too complicated here. And finally, set is downloading equal to false. Okay, so pretty, I would say, chunky function, but it's not too complicated, just downloading the file. But yeah, this is the download model function. That's all we need to do here. So let's go back to the initialize Whisper model. Now we have the get model directory, download model function should be functional. So if we come here, we can actually call this function now. So if you remember, the function returns the file URL. So we can get the model path, and then we can call download model and we pass the model, right? So this model is coming from here. So this is going to either return the path that already exists, and if it doesn't exist, it's going to go ahead and download it. You can move this logic around in case you want to specifically ask the user if they want to download it. You can trigger that with a press of a button if you want to. But at this point, if the model is not available, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the URL and download it. Once we have the model path, we can initialize the model. And finally, at this point, I'm going to say context. This context is going to come from Whisper.rn, and we can call this init Whisper function. Let me show you where this is coming from. This is coming from here. Yeah, so it says index.js because I actually, if I remove this, I get this warning. So not sure why this is happening, but this works. So we call init Whisper like that. And of course, this expects some properties like the file path. We can pass a model path that we get from the line above. It also takes other properties like some advanced stuff. Use core ML iOS, use GPU. You can play around with those values, but those are actually not necessary for the functionality. This should do it. And this is going to return the context of the model. Basically, once we have the local file in the system, we can just pass the URL to Whisper, and that's it. Now we get the context and we can do pretty cool things with the context, like start streaming, passing a file audio, and get the transcript and stuff like that. After we have the context, let's set our state variables, set Whisper context, and set current model ID, which is the current model that the user is using, because it could be that we have multiple models using it. So let's create these state variables up here. I'm going to just paste this in here. Whisper context. It's using the type Whisper context that is coming from Whisper.rn. This is just the type of the context so that everything is fully typed. Then we are using this vat context. This is just an any function. I don't think we're going to use it. Then we have current model ID and set current model ID, just to keep track of which current model the user is using, and each time that the user selects a different one, we're going to update that state variable. Okay, so Whisper context initialize for model, we're just putting that in the console. After that, we can return the context. In this case, I'm not going to pass this, just like that. The thing that we actually care is just the context at this point. Now, let me just quickly show you that if I say context dot, you can see that we get some values, some functions like transcribe data, transcribe real time. And these three things I think are the main things that we care about at this point. So let's just save this. And this is our function. It's pretty simple, but we had to abstract the download functionality, which is I think the more complex part, and the init whisper and getting the path and all that. But once we have the files locally, this is just one time that the user needs to do it. We can load them with the init whisper function. So let's minimize this function. And finally, this hook can return an object with the initialize whisper model function. We can also return available models, which is just going to be pointing to the whisper models function array that we created. Then we can display them. The user can select them, and then if we don't have them, we are going to download them. Otherwise, we're going to set them and mount them with and initialize them with Whisper. Let's return all the state variables that we are keeping track of. Model files, downloading progress, is downloading, is initializing. Everything is going to be here, and we can return it. Now, some actions for the user of this hook are going to be reset whisper context and delete model. That's very useful, and that is going to be available in the source code down here. But also downloading the model and initialize whisper, which is the same function down here, just to keep things organized. We also can export some helper functions. Let's actually create these helper functions before we go. These functions are actually very simple. Let's just create them here. Get model by ID. Basically, it takes the model as parameter, and then we just find it in the list of models. We could do this somewhere else, but it's a helper. Then we get the current model function. This one just returns the current model ID. And if we have it, we just call get model by ID. Otherwise, we return null. And then we have is model downloaded. It returns if we have models at position model ID. If that's undefined, it's going to return true. It takes the model ID and returns whether we have a model downloaded for that specific ID. And then we get download progress, which takes the model ID and checks the download progress for that specific model ID. Okay, and then we return all this good stuff, and we can use it with the hook. So let's close this file. We should be able to now go back to the app and initialize this model in the home screen. Of course, I'm not going to be using the entire capabilities of our hook, but you could have something like this, right? We can grab all these from our hook that we just created. Let's remove this. So in here, we are destructuring all this good stuff. Now we have this initialize whisper model function that we can call here. So let's call this initialize whisper model. This is going to take the model ID, and we just pass it as it is. It's going to take the model, so let's just pass the model. This is a model ID, by the way, so let's rename this so that everyone is on the same page. And that's pretty much it. Once we have this function, we can call it when we load the application for the first time in a use effect. Let's just call it like this. And yeah, once we load the application, it's going to start downloading. So I'm going to comment this for now because we actually don't have anything in the UI, and it's going to be hard to see what's going on. We could, open the console to check the progress and all that, but it's nice if we just display something on screen. So down here, I'm going to just grab some values from the variables that we have, like the active model, and then the download percentage. We're calling this get download percentage for the current model. Otherwise, we are just getting it for the base, otherwise 0. Then we have the Whisper status text, which is just checking if it's downloading, then it's going to say downloading, right? Otherwise, it's going to check is initializing the model. It's going to display is initializing. Otherwise, Whisper, if we have Whisper context, it's going to say that it's ready with the active model label. And then otherwise it's not initialized, right? So then we have is real-time status, is real-time active, is transcribing. We don't have this at the moment, so let's comment this out. And then store models, which is, those just the entries of the model files, and we can display them by iterating over them. So let's start by displaying the Whisper status text down here. It's safe, not initialized, which is great. Let me pass a style here. I'm gonna say style. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna say styles.title, or let's just say text. And let's create a style for a text. To remove all that. Font size of 20. Font weights bold. And yeah, I think that's okay for now. So let's say status. Okay, so once we have this, let's open the terminal and let's pay attention to the status here. And now I'm going to uncomment my init. So what is going to happen is that it's going to check that we don't have the base model, which is the default, and it's going to start downloading. We're going to see the progress, and then we're going to see the status update. So let's press save. We get the status fairly quickly, and now we have the base model here. Awesome. Cool. So now if I put, let's say, these store models in the console log json.stringify store models null2, it's safe. We have one model, which is the base. So this is an array. We can say something like stored models. Let's remove this. It's safe. And then we can iterate for each store model. So I'm gonna say map for each item. And then we can return a text for each one of them. So each item is actually an array with 2 items. We could actually say stored model. I think that's a way better name. Oops. And then we can grab the position 1, which is the model ID. And then it's going to have an object in the second one with info. Okay, cool. So now in here, I can say just model ID. And I think this is expecting a key with the model ID. Cool, let's hit save. Okay, and now we can see that we have the base. And we can display more info, like name, base. And then, I don't know, maybe we can duplicate this and put it inside a view. We are going to need to get the key. So let's put this in here. It's safe. Oh, and let me bring this from React Native. It's safe. Okay, so we have name, and then let me remove this key from here. We can display the info dot path. That's a long string. I don't think that's necessary, but we can display the size. Now for the size, these are bytes. And we can actually just create a simple helper function here. This is going to be called format bytes, and it's a function that I asked ChatGPT to create. And it's basically just going to display kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and terabytes, which is pretty scalable. So down here, I can call this function and pass the info size and hit save. And now it says 141 megabytes, which is great. All right, so now let's just clear the console. So at this point, we finally have the model locally and it's loaded, initialized correctly. So we can actually start doing some cool stuff like start a live translation. So let's come here. I'm going to create some state variables using useState, and this is just so that we can keep track of what's going on, like the real-time transcriber is transcribing, is real-time active. This is so that we can actually just display some information on screen. Real-time result, real-time final result. This is totally optional. It depends on what you want to do. And then we have an error here, just having a variable just in case we are going to need it. All right, so for this video, I want to show you how you can do the real-time transcription. So let's create a function, async function, start real-time transcription. Simple as that. And then I'm going to create another one for stopping. So I'm gonna say stop real-time transcription. All right, so here, now that we know that we have the context, so we can simply say if we don't have a Whisper context, then, don't do anything, just return or show an alert that they need to download the model first. Next thing that you need to do is make sure that you have microphone permissions. So check mic permissions. After that, we can use Whisper to transcribe. And then once we start the transcription, we need to subscribe to this transcription so that we get updates of the progress. So I'm going to say subscribe. So first of all, let's check if we have permissions. I'm going to create this function, ensure mic permissions. So let's create it here. I'm going to paste the code here. This is going to be using Expo Audio. And it's just going to return a promise with true or false, whether we have permissions or not. So in this case, I'm not going to be using web, but it's a good idea that you have a validation for web in case you are targeting web as well. So get permissions async. Let's bring platform from React Native. And this is just the text that we are going to show depending on Android or iOS. This is actually totally optional. After that, we are going to be calling the get recording permissions async function, and that is coming from Expo Audio. So if we go to the package JSON, remember that we install Expo Audio at the beginning. So now we use these 4 permissions. Then we check if the permission is granted, just return true. In the permission status, we can get this and ask again a variable that is going to let us know if we can actually prompt the user. So then we get the permissions text. Let's say that they are using Android. We're going to say, please enable microphone access in Android settings to use real-time transcript. Okay, we're just telling them, you know what, you didn't provide permissions, you cannot use the app, we're going to return false. So this is in the case that we cannot ask for permissions again because the user already said no. So at this point, we can just return and say that they need to enable permissions manually in settings. But if this is the first time, we can prompt for permissions by calling request recording permissions. This is going to return the status. If the status is granted, we return true. Otherwise, if the status is cancelled or they didn't provide permissions, we can show the alert again and basically just return false and ask the user to go to the settings. Okay, so a pretty simple function just to ensure that we have the right permissions, and we're calling it here. So careful with these guys, because if you don't ask permissions, the app is going to crash and it's going to be just a weird error. All right, we have the model, we have permissions. Now we can actually start transcribing. Let's start by setting the variables. Set real-time active equal to true. Set real-time result, just an empty string because we are starting. Set error equal to an empty string because we are starting, we don't have errors yet. Now we use the built-in transcribe real-time method from Whisper.rn, and that is going to take some options that we can import from this with this interface here. So these are the real-time options that we can define. Here's where you define the language that you want to use with the model, in this case English. These variables are actually very important because by default, Whisper is going to just record or do the real-time session for 30 seconds, which is, you gotta keep in mind that this is a small model and it's running on device. So of course, if you keep the session long, like let's say, I don't know, 30 minutes or something, it's actually going to crash, right? So let's try to keep the sessions, short. They do 30 seconds, which is very low in my opinion. So I tried 300 seconds. You can pass any amount of seconds here. Just keep in mind that, this is a local LLM at the end of the day. And then we're just defining other options here. So once we have these options, we can finally call Whisper transcribe real time. From the Whisper context, we can call this, and this is going to take the options that we define here. And this is going to return the stop and subscribe functions. Once we start transcribing, we can subscribe to updates, and also we can stop the transcription. So it's returning these two functions. First of all, I need to store these stop options so that we can stop the transcription. So I'm going to call this set real-time transcriber, and I'm going to pass an object with the stop function. This is using useState, by the way, okay? And then, of course, we can subscribe to updates. This is where we update the state and the UI. So it's going to be fairly simple. We call the subscribe function right away here. This is going to come with an event that contains is capturing, contains the data, the process time, and the recording time. We can put this in the console. And then we check the data dot result. And this is going to get the current result of the transcript. Based on that, we can just trim it and then set the real-time result, okay, with the current result. This is always going to update the display because this is the state variable. We put more info in the console, and then we check if it's not capturing. We are going to put in the console speech segment finished, but continuing to listen. So that's when you stopped, but the model is listening, meaning that you haven't stopped, but it's not transcribing anymore. This is actually a weird state. Because this don't stop the session, it just logged that the speech segment, it was ended, right? If you want, I think maybe we can just call here stop. Depends on what you're trying to do, but in this case, if the user does not stop the session manually, we're going to continue listening for more speech. Cool. So that's it. That's pretty much all it is to it. So we're storing the stop function, and we have a function here for that. So inside this stop real-time transcription, I'm going to first of all check if we have a real-time transcriber stop function. And if we do, I'm going to call it to stop. And then set real-time transcriber equal to null. And then capture the final result. This is totally optional. At this point, you can do anything. We set the final result to the variable, put something in the console, set, it's just basically setting the state, right, for everything. So now let's actually see this in action. I'm going to create another text here. And let's say live result. And we can say something like, and we can display the real time result. It's safe. Okay, so live result is nothing. We can have validations like, is real time active? True. Or we can say just active, otherwise inactive. It's safe. Right now is inactive, as you can see there. Then we need to add some buttons. So I'm just going to add a simple button from React Native with a title start, and maybe we can have another to stop. Actually, I'm thinking that we can actually use the same button. Let's call this a start live session. And then we can validate if real time is active. We are going to have something like stop, right? Let me copy this. Paste it in here. Stop live session. Okay. And for the color, I don't know. We can do something like that. So I don't know if it's active, red. Otherwise, we can do blue or green, for example. Yeah, it's green. On press, we want to check is real time active. If that's the case, we want to stop real time transcription. Otherwise, we want to start real time transcription. Oh, and yeah, little mistake here. I'm actually calling these functions. That's why it's asking me for permissions. I'm going to allow anyways and refresh the app. Okay, so let's see what happens. I'm going to start a live session. Okay, we have some warnings in the console, but this is actually working. Let's see what we have in here. It's a bunch of data. Oh yeah, so these warnings, it's totally okay. It's coming from React. It's coming from the Whisper package. I saw that they have an issue and they are working on a fix for these warnings. They are migrating to something more modern. But as you can see here, it's working in real time using the base model as I speak. And the result is updating. If you take a closer look, you can see how the model updates the entire result sometimes to, I guess, give it more sense based on what I'm saying. Because I've noticed that sometimes I screw up what I'm saying and the model still gets it right, or at least it looks better. But yeah, this is basically what I wanted to show you guys. Pretty cool stuff. Keep in mind that we are using 300 seconds at the moment, but we can comment these two out and it's going to be 30 seconds. So I'm not sure if you actually want to see me for 30 seconds, but maybe we can change this to be 5 seconds just to see what happens when you do that. Let me clear the terminal. I'm going to start a live session and it should be active for 5 seconds. And at the end, is going to start listening. You see the log here? Oh, maybe I'm covering with my face, but it says speech segment finished, but continuing to listen. The model still listening and basically finish. We are basically hitting this if statement. From here, you can, stop if you want, or just, I don't know, I guess, not sure what else you can do here. But just wanted to show you what happens once that's done. So in this case, maybe you want to start again, restart everything. That means that the user is still talking, but you are not getting the transcript anymore. So maybe just prompt the user to start again, call the stop function and stuff like that. So yeah, by default, I think maybe you can also have a timer letting the user know how much time is the max that they can speak for the transcription, and then start again. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you like it. I hope you learned something new. Very exciting what you can do here. Of course, this was a more advanced tutorial, mostly showing how everything is handled step by step. I'm gonna leave the full example open source in the description. Make sure to check it out. Let me know in the comments, what are you gonna be doing with this in your application? Don't forget to check out codewithbeto.dev if you want to master React Native and mobile development from zero to hero. Check out the promo code in the description as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.